Welcome back to Let's Play Grim Dawn Hardcore, QuestySparks. You should be seeing my mouse cursor now. This is a big development for this series, if I recall correctly, because I previously was a complete idiot and didn't realize that there was actually a little option I had to toggle on to show this in Bandicam, which I'm using to record this. But now I've made breakthroughs, and here we are. Mouse cursor visible. It's onward and upwards from here. Assuming I can figure out what it is I'm supposed to be doing, because I have been away from this now for over a month. But I've taken a quick review of my character, taken a quick look at my skills, and if you're coming from the last video, who am I saying? Nobody's watching these. But if you are coming from the last video, you will know where I'm at as well, which is trying to open the portal in Burrich Village. We're up to the outskirts here. And I believe we do have the blacksmith in town now, if I remember correctly. Yeah, we do. So we've done that. That's important. We can now craft. We can now do those things. We're level 17. As soon as we get up a couple more levels, we're going to start looking at crafting, relics and stuff like that. But as it stands, let's just get right back out there. We're 7 points away from getting storm totems, which is what we want to do on this character. We want lightning, we want pox. Right now we've got pox, and we're sort of patching it in with our pets here, but eventually we're going to transition into being a direct damage build, and something that I haven't done before, which is that storm shaman kind of scenario. Very cool stuff. Probably I haven't played it before, so I wouldn't know, but it's gonna be good times. Assuming I don't cock it up and die, which is always a possibility. But it's always nice to sit down and get back into the game. I also noticed as well, I think I might have, I haven't watched the last video, but I seem to remember that there was a lot of choppiness and weirdness related to how it was rendering. And I noticed that, and I just looked at the very beginning of the video. I'm kind of hoping to figure that out. I mean, I don't know what I'm doing at all, which is obviously makes it a little more difficult to figure it out. I should be using my totem, shouldn't I? Oh, look at these little healers. They can actually really screw up a fight, because most of the healing in Grim Dawn, like my totems as well, they kind of work in this way where the effective healing is sort of a percentage of the health bar plus an amount, right? So maybe like, heal 6%, plus 300 or something like that. And what that means is that if you are fighting a pack and you have one of these little shitheads here holding back and casting those heals, and you've got a couple elites in the pack, their health bar is so long that 6% might just keep them up no matter what you do. So you've got to be a little bit alert to those guys. They can kind of mess with you in a fight sometimes. Just tiny little enemies that cause real problems. But speaking of causing real problems, let's get this Grobel, which, let's be honest, these are basically just hipster goblins. Let's get underway on this and get some genocide going. Look at that pox. Oh, I love it. It's the lazy man's way to murder hundreds of goblins at a time. Just the other day, actually, just yesterday, I saw the first. This is off topic to the game, of course, but vaguely related through it being Crate Entertainment. But I watched the first sort of hour gameplay stream that they did of their new city builder, Frontier, I believe it's called. Man, I am all over that. As soon as that comes out in early access, I have a sneaking hunch that's going to be something I'm going to be playing here a little bit, just poking around it probably, but I am incredibly excited for that. It's basically Banished, which is one of my favorite games, just kind of combined with some combat and some exploration and adventuring. Deep. It was saying that already in early access, there's 80 different production items that you can build out of your economy and stuff like that. Man, I am tremendously excited. I love those types of games, but I'm pretty specific about how I like them. And one of the things about Banished for me that I remember, I've played a lot of Banished, and one of the things about that game, when I first saw it, just this little single developer studio, I remember watching it, listening to the music and stuff like that. Here we've got another spot where we don't have any dynamite. This is going to lead us to a really high level zone. We do not want to be over there yet, but we will want to be over there in the future. But yeah, anyway, I remember when Banish first came out, or even when I just saw it. Like, I saw a video of it playing and the music and everything, and I was like, that is going to be a game that I'm going to want to relax to. When you get off work or something, you come home and you just sit there, no stress, just trying to keep your villagers from starving to death or dying of typhoid. And I think that's exactly what this game will be, but with that dose of Crate's artistic flair. The artwork looks beautiful. The buildings look amazing. Yeah, very stoked for that. Very stoked to hit these next levels too, because like I say, I'm only 7 skill points away from getting storm totems going. I'll have to see if I sort of transition right away. What I might actually do is possibly recover the points that I have. See, I've got quite a few points here. I do have a bonus on this, but I probably have like 4 points invested into my Briarthorn, and I might, once I unlock Storm Totem, I might just quick swap that over and keep the Lightning Crow, and then go with the Storm Totems, because ultimately I'm probably not going to have minions on my skill bar. Like, I might have ones that summon from my abilities, which, that doesn't hurt because it helps to get you detargeted sometimes and whatnot. But I probably won't have any on my skill bar, because I'm thinking that I'll probably have Wind Devils out. And they're one of the minions. There's sort of 2 different types of minion that the game runs. And one of them is obviously the type of minion that I have running right now, which is an actual, summonable, controllable minion. But they scale with pet bonuses. So these ones would be considered pets. Quick aside here, we've found ourselves Olgrim. It gives us an option whether or not we tell them about the prison. I'm always going to take the option that means I don't have to cook my own food, so I always invite him. I don't know what happens with this, but I can tell you this guy's a main character throughout the story, so one way or another, he's finding his way to the prison, but let's just send him there so he can get the soup on. Get through that rift. All right, but yeah, like I was saying, the other type of pets are things like the Oath Keepers, righteous hammer dudes that cruise around with them and stuff like that, and the Wind Devils that the shaman can use. And basically the ticket there is that they scale off of your bonuses, so they're not treated as pets, right? Basically, with the Wind Devil, for example, it's going to be doing lightning damage and stuff like that, and that damage is going to scale directly off of how much added lightning damage I can do. And that works really well, because obviously so are my... man, somebody's got some tie down, some crowd control on me here. But they're going to scale directly off of what I can do. And that... See, look, we're getting this here. We're getting healing from somebody. This little guy right here. Let's see if we can bring him down. Did we get him? Yeah, we got him. Okay, let's clear this guy, and then we can get serious about these elites. Because we were banging our head on this. Oh man, can this guy heal as well? That would just be so unfair. Get our little Stormcrow back out here. I need everything I got with my flimsy little shaky noodle arms trying to bring these guys down. You can see how much additional durability that myself and my pets actually have from the use of the Wendigo totem. I would say that a lot of different builds are really viable for your first character in the game. But if you are just starting out in Grim Dawn, I highly recommend that you take the Ritualist, which is the combination of Necromancer and Shaman. It is incredibly powerful, because one of the most annoying and difficult things you're going to have in the early levels with the Necromancer is the fact that a lot of your DPS comes from a horde of skeletons, but they are very fragile. You're going to feel probably okay when they're fighting groups of opponents, but when you fight a big boss and he instantly rakes down your DPS, you're going to find yourself in trouble, because pretty quickly you're going to be in cooldown, you're not going to be able to resummon your skellies, and you're just running, wishing that you knew some offensive magic. Essentially what you want to do is you want to make sure you have that totem, because it'll keep your minions up in a fight, and you're going to have to cycle them a lot less. You can see them healing here. They're just taking healing pulses off of that that totem and staying in the fight. It's a beautiful thing. It's not the only way to build pets, but it's the easy way to build pets. The first level 100 character I ever had in the game was a ritualist, and I had definitely lost lost steam on other characters before I tried that build, and it was dominant. It does become a problem later in the game because you don't really have a lot of ways to recover your own health, right? Like, you can have a couple abilities and you can take advantage of your own totem. Taking advantage of your own totem, though, it gets tough when you're up against really difficult opponents, mainly because you have to stay close enough to get the pulses. And that means you're close enough to eat the AoEs. And that can be pretty ugly. So that's when it gets really important that you actually have a lot of your own health recovery, which, the ritualist simply doesn't have. But to get there in the first place, it's a really good build, so it's going to be something that'll really flesh out your item assistant, give you a lot of options for future builds. There we got level 18 right there. I'm just going to tidy up this little infestation of crystal dudes. I love how they always have environments like this. Can you imagine the smell of a place like this? Like, I've never had one of those scenarios in life where, your neighbor dies in the bathtub or something and no one finds him for 10 days. So you're in like an apartment that just has a carcass rotting next to it. I've never had that, so I'm not entirely sure how bad it smells, but I have it on reasonably good authority that it's one of the worst smells that can exist. Look at that. We're only 2 levels away from getting Storm Totem. It's gonna be exciting. I have it on authority. It's one of the worst smells. So you imagine just being in a situation like this where the bodies aren't even laying down yet. It's no good. I don't even know what my approach to that would be, because I'm a little bit squeamish when it comes to that. Like, I remember one time walking down the railway tracks when I was younger, and finding a deer that had sort of been hit by the train. And obviously deer versus train, it's not going to go incredibly well. So there was sort of half the carcass on one side, half the carcass on the other side. And it had been a few days. And it was just this horrifying mess. And please, put your bowl of noodles down right now. But there was like sort of in the cavity of the carcass, there was like this black tar-like ooze coming out of it. And I remember the wind must have been blowing away from, I must have been upwind of it as I was coming in, and then ended up downwind as I walked past it. And it was the closest I've ever had to a smell just instantaneously stimulating you to vomit, Like it was almost like an uncontrollable reaction that I had to it. All that to say, some of the places in this game probably don't smell incredibly good. So anyway, as that level demonstrated there, we actually are getting incredibly close to being able to use the build that we're looking for. Now, this is very much, if you're familiar with Path of Exile or really any game like this, you will find that like sometimes taking it the moment you get it is not going to work out. Now, fortunately in this game, it is so cheap to respec that we can go in, try to use storm totems, set that up, try it out. And if we're really flailing around trying to kill enemies, we just go back to what we're doing, because this is not bad. This is going to get us through for a while. What we have going on right now. And I did dump a bunch of points into Bloody Pox. So enemy is not loving the pox. That's doing work for us. And as we extend that, it's going to be a workhorse as well. Bloody Pox, though, it kind of is a little deceptive, because when you first are starting out in the game and you're facing these big groups of really weak opponents, Bloody Pox is just like the answer to every problem you could possibly have, right? Like it just sweeps through the enemy. You're in a lawn chair having a beer, everybody's dying, clawing their eyes out. It's fantastic. But you quite suddenly find that its DPS is extremely low. So if you've dumped all your points into that, you're gonna really struggle to kill bosses. and you're going to really struggle when you hit enemies that are highly resistant to it. And I know I don't know this for sure, but I would assume I've probably banged on about this when I first took the ability. It's one of my favorites, but it's also got its weaknesses, which is why I want to develop a little bit of a direct damage build with this guy as well. And we'll just see how that works. I mean, that's kind of the format here. Like, in terms of a let's play, this is just like, hey, let's fuck around. Let's play a character in hardcore and see how far we get. No guarantees of anything here. It's that age-old thing. If you're thinking you're watching this to learn how to be an awesome Grim Dawn player, probably the wrong thing to watch. I'm sure there's lots of build guides out there. That's something that I've always had a little bit of a thing about, though. I love to do stuff myself, right? That was my curse in Path of Exile, was just me stubbornly sitting there like, I'm gonna figure this out, you know. And I would see things that would just be these incredibly meta builds that everyone was using because they're just so good, you know. But I wouldn't have thought of it first, and so I'd be like, well, I guess that's off the table. And then I would just get frustrated, you know, because the good stuff would be thought about by your, you know, Ziz and Ziggy D and all these guys, like right off the bat. Like, all the streamers would be like, hey, look what I figured out how to do with trap build or something like that, you know. And I'm flailing around with some other stupid skill that I wanted to make work. But it's another game where the minion builds were a hell of a lot of fun to me. I've kind of drifted away from Path of Exile and really kind of settled into this game. I used to sort of play both of them, you know. I'd play a bit of this kind of once I burned out on a Path of Exile season, and then go back to Poe when the next season came out. But I just ran through a few seasons where I just wasn't really feeling it, you know. And they've kind of, they really are just sort of inching that microtransaction economy forward, like a little more and a little more. And I was really tolerant of that. You know, I was the guy who was buying a supporter pack with every league. You know, I was like, I love this game. I just want it to do well. But after a while, you start to look and you're like, well, the mechanics are pushing now, right? You know, there's like every league, there's 3-4 more types of currency that are going to clog your inventory. And, you know, and then a couple leagues later, they're like, hey, yeah, okay, we've got such a pile of shit. Now you can buy a specialized stash tab to take care of those things. And you're, oh, that's so convenient. Thank you. And then they're like, and here's the 5 new things you've got to pick up for this league. And it's like, wait, you just helped me manage the 20 things I have to pick up from the last few leagues. And it was just getting to be that kind of treadmill scenario where you could tell that they're like, you know, Tencent is probably in there saying like, okay, you've got to direct a few more people towards the cash shop. You know, this Goodwill thing is great. Now let's cash it in. And that's not to say that I don't still think Chris Wilson is a, you know, really good guy and it's a great company and all that. But I think there's an inevitability, right? You know, somebody gives you a few $1 billion or whatever it is to buy your company. And then they say like, oh, nothing's going to change. That's, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, that's not possible. Please tell me the next one, right? Like, it is not possible that they're going to drop a couple billion on this and just not expect you to increase your microtransaction take. Like, that is required. It's sort of that way. Like, it's always going to be that way because now you have another person to pay, right? Like, they're not in it for nothing. You have to pay them. So that was kind of the moment where I think the love affair started to fall apart. Okay, speaking of falling apart, let's see if this playthrough falls apart. We've got a Savage Totem here. I can't really tell you what's going to pop out of this one. It's going to be creatures, like probably maybe some Eldritch or something like that. We'll kind of see, but they're probably going to be beasts. You can always tell what's coming up from these things by their class, and there's a couple that I happen to know where, unless I'm just a real baller of a build, I just stay away from them. This isn't one of them as far as I know. I feel like this should be all right. Gonna be some bursty damage out of these Yetis here. So that's gonna be potentially an issue, but we do have potion sitting there waiting, charged up. We should be good. How are we so tanky? I don't remember what I've done, but we really are not taking a lot of damage from these guys. I guess we have a level advantage on them. We've been going through the game content pretty slow here. We're a little bit on the slow progress side. So our level's getting a little out of hand, but that's okay. survivability, right? If you're playing softcore, I would say you always kind of want to stay a little bit behind the level curve so that, you know, the enemies are always, you know, 2-3 levels ahead of you at minimum, just so you're optimizing the XP gain. Here, on the other hand, you know, yeah, death in softcore, it doesn't really bug me, but here, obviously, it's the end of the day, so, or the end of the playthrough, so take it easy, be careful, over level a little bit, and see if we can get through. Yeah, I'm interested to see in the stream that I was talking about there, the crate guy that was doing the playthrough. You know, he was kind of joking a little bit. They were sort of memeing a little bit on Diablo Immortal and stuff like that. You know, talking about how many orbs it would take you to you know, plant crops and what your chances of getting like actual crops versus, you know, like unsellable crops and stuff like that were. And I know, you know, this game here just delivers all of the cosmetics and absolutely every part of it is just in the game, right? You know, and there's still a studio of I think about, you know, a dozen people or something like that. So they don't have a ton of overhead. They can probably afford to keep that format going forward, but it's sort of a creeping disease in video games where you don't get things like this very often, right? Because this does have DLC. It's got you know, the Forgotten Gods and Ashes of Malmoth, but those are fully featured expansions, you know, like back in the day, and they bring a ton to the game. And then all of the other little tweaks, you know, they just did a big rebalance to kind of make a lot more builds viable. One of the interesting things they did, and that I might look at, they did we're not done here. They did a big rebalance of ranged combat, which I've always felt is pretty weak. I've never really gotten too into you know, doing any gun builds or anything like that. Like, I'll use a gun, but it's usually the actual damage and primary skill is going to be something else. But they have looked at that, and one of the things that he was saying in this stream was that they rebalanced it so that over penetration for shots is skill related now instead of weapon related. And that is interesting, because basically that means as long as you're taking the right attack skills and developing them, it means that all projectile weapons in the game are going to over penetrate targets, you know, like pass through targets and allow you to hit things in a line. That makes guns a lot more viable for group clear, because that's kind of always been my problem, right? If you don't have a good group clear, it's just so slow and tedious. Even if you can really dish out good single target, it just takes forever to get anywhere, you know? Okay, so I'm just popping back here because we actually have done a couple quests going through there. Some of those elites we killed where I was babbling on about villages and stuff like that, they were actually the guys that Harmond here was looking for us to kill. So let's let him know that it was gruesome and bloody just the way I like it. Now, the reason I'm going to say this is because, you know, if we show any compassion, he thinks we're a pussy. So we don't want that. So yeah. Did what had to be done. Okay, so there we go. Another little pot. We got the level there as well, and I think you know which level this is. Can you feel the totems? I can.
What's the situation out there? Good work. There have been countless Warden Creek.
All right, and then of course, John Bourbon here. He's the one who's commissioning us to sort of press ahead with the main storyline and opening that rift in the village. That's our beachhead. Now we're in. We're gonna get up on Warden Krieg's territory. Okay, so I forgot to put my points in last time. I'm probably going to be dropping quite a bit into spirit, which it looks like I've been doing. I've sort of been pumping physique and spirit. Physique, obviously just good. It's giving me that bonus regen and bonus health. This is part of why I'm feeling quite tanky right now. But we are going to start stacking spirit as well, because we're going to be a self-casting character. We'll need quite a bit of that going forward, right? We need a lot of energy, and we need it to regen quite quickly. But now, here we are, 3 points. And unfortunately, I got overexcited again. You've seen this happen before. Next level is the exciting level. I mean, we could, if we cashed in our Briarthorn, we could actually go get it right now. But that would only give us a couple points, and I would like to dump a little bit into it just to get the base damage up so that we can, you know, so that we can kill quickly, basically. So let's not rush it. Let's not get carried away. Let's just get back out there and do some work. And this is Olgrim. As you can see, he's settled in. He's got some soup on the burner, so we'll take a little of that. He can tell us some stories here. Turns out he's an old hand, an old traveler. But we're just going to get back into it here. Well, are we going to get back into it? Where could I get in the next 5 minutes? You know what I might do? I might call this one right here and then jump straight into the next one and just get a couple episodes in the can here. Like I said, I've been away for a while, so I've got to get back on this thing. I did just start a playthrough of Dungeon Siege, which popped up on sale. So if you're interested in a little bit more, a slightly different take on ARPGs, that's also going to be something I'll have popping up on my channel pretty soon. But in the meantime, thank you for dropping by and stay tuned for the next one. I will see you all later.